me start by thanking colleagues from SPREP from the Pacific region because it's about 5 a.m. In the morning. So thank you very much for helping us join at this odd hour. So we will actually have a number of presentations today in continuation of the project steering committee that we started yesterday. And then as discussed, the session for today will be chaired by Ms. Crystal Pratt, the Assistant Secretary General of the OACPS Secretariat based in Brussels. And then in terms of the agenda, we'll have a short presentation from UNEP on a report that we have prepared of connecting the ACP MEAs 3 program with elements of the Samoa Pathway. And I'll give a little bit of a detail in a minute, followed by a presentation from the Pacific region, where we have colleagues from SPREP who will speak about the regional hub activities, but also activities related to implementation under the NOMEA Convention. Then we will have colleagues from various MEA secretariats who will be making interventions. Some of them have presentations, but some of them are making oral interventions. Followed by a colleague from the European Environment Bureau, Elena, who will be speaking about the component being implemented by the European Environment Bureau. And then we will have the last session where we will discuss about some of the ideas, issues, and elements that we discussed both yesterday and today, and then followed by discussions. We'll have a short break in between. And certainly, Crystal, we are with you in helping you conduct the day's proceedings. So over to you, Crystal.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Bala. And the meeting proper starting at 17:05. And so thank you, Bala, for taking us through all of the work that the Programme Steering Committee has to accomplish over the next 3.5 hours. And so I do thank you, Orly, for your excellent chairing yesterday. So I've got quite a bit to live up to today. And so I hope that you will all bear with me. I'm going to try and stick to time so that we do finish in 3.5 hours, but that in that time we really do have a very robust exchange, come out with some very concrete suggestions in terms of going forward so that we build a very strong program of work for 2022. So without further ado, I think it's you, Bala, and Mary Kanua talking to us about those important links with the Samoa Pathway. So I'll let you, over to you both. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Chair. And essentially, this is a very short presentation from UNEP, where my colleague Mary Kanua, who is a senior author of this particular document, will be speaking about the elements of the publication. But I'd like to spend about 2 minutes giving you a bit of a background on why we thought we will do this, and also how we would like to integrate elements of it within the work program, agreed work program under the ACP MEAs 3. You know, as we discussed both during the last steering committee meeting as well as in between interim, in terms of positioning the ACP MEAs 3 program more strategically, and not looking the current phase of the program as a bunch of different activities that are approved and agreed to under the project. We thought that it is important that we identify some cross-cutting issues that are relevant, not only in terms of enhancing the impact of implementation of the ACP MEAs 3, but also finding strategic linkages both institutionally as well as individually in terms of creating an impact of the ACP MEAs 3 program. So in that regard, we in 2021 thought of 2 or 3 different ideas, but this is the first one we were able to complete. The first one is focus on how the ACP MEAs program could potentially contribute to elements of the Samoa Pathway. Yesterday, thanks for correcting me, Crystal, in terms of the number of SIDs in the region, in the ACP regions. So a number of discussions we have had with the regional hubs as well as with partners, including colleagues like the CBD Secretariat or colleagues from UNDESA and others, including yourself, Crystal. We realized that there is a need for us to strengthen our focus in terms of finding linkages between ACP MEAs 3 and SIDS. And the Samoa Pathway, as many of you would know, and Mary will have 1 or 2 slides giving a bit of a background, is an extremely important internationally agreed framework within which a lot of activities related to the elements of the ACP MEAs program are appropriately linked. So what we intend to do in this particular document, which has been shared with all the regional hubs and partners for their comments and inputs, is to provide you a very quick overview of elements of the work program that is agreed under ACP MEAs 3 and how it relates to the Samoa Pathway, where we actually took the outcomes of the 2019 discussions on the progress that has been made in implementation of the Samoa Pathway by the countries belonging to SIDS. But this particular document goes a step further, because many of you know that the Samoa Pathways were agreed in 2014. So 2024 is the 10 years or 10th anniversary of agreeing the Samoa Pathway. And because this particular program will run into 2024, we thought it may be appropriate and strategic for us to already find some linkages of how the ACP MEAs could contribute to Samoa Pathway Plus 10 in 2024. That's a bit of a background, and our intention and also a request to all the partners in the regions is to capture and also mainstream some of the ideas that are a part of this particular document into the work plans and work programs that we are implementing as a part of the ACP MEAs 3. So with that background, I'll hand over the floor to my colleague Mary Kaniwa, who actually works as a part of the ACP MEAs team at UNEP. And she basically was the one who was leading preparing this particular document in consultation with a lot of colleagues. Over to you, Mary. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Balakrishna, for such a detailed overview of the Samoa Pathway. So I will be very quick in my presentation. So please, you could first confirm if you can see my screen.
Yes, go ahead, Mary. Just put it in the presentation mode. You're okay.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so thank you. I'm going to give you a brief about the Samoa Pathway and how we as ACP and MEAs and program we are going to engage. So for starters, the small island developing states, the SIDS, have basically unique landscapes and ecology and culture. They possess good natural resources in terrestrial areas and in the deep seas. Among these are minerals, unique biodiversity, including potential bioresources for pharmaceutical products, hydrocarbon, renewable energy resources, and fish stocks. These seeds also have unique indigenous knowledge that can help to develop sustainability and manage their natural environment productively. The small island developing states have a number of opportunities, such as the potential to manage threats from chemical wastes, strategic partnerships. They can strengthen their resilience, their knowledge. Sorry for that. They can strengthen their resilience, their knowledge, innovation, and technology. So Samoa Pathway was adopted during a 3rd summit of the United Nations SIDS Summit that took place in 2014. The Samoa Pathway framework sets out sustainable development priorities for the SIDS that builds from the Barbados Program of Action or the United Nations Program of Action for the SIDS. This took place in 1994. And also the Mauritius strategy for further implementation of this program of action for SIDS. So initially the Barbados was in 1994, followed by the Mauritius strategy to further implement this in 2005. So all this started as early as 1992 during the Rio Earth Summit, where a number of states committed themselves to address the problems of the SIDS. Okay, so what are these key problems faced by these small islands? degradation of scarcity of freshwater resources, limited resources and land capacity, loss of biodiversity and associated ecosystem services, inhibited renewable energy opportunities, high costs and adverse effects of climate change and natural disasters, threatened food and livelihood security, ocean pollution, remoteness of these seeds, and this affects also the economy, their high debts and indebtedness, and finally, limited funding to address these key problems of the seeds. So now I'm going to talk about the ACP MEAs linkages to the Samoa Pathway. In this diagram, I am illustrating the 3 objectives of the ACP MEAs, which is basically on biodiversity, of ocean governance, and chemicals and wastes. So the key objectives cross-cutting in the Samoa Pathway are well aligned with the 3 objectives for the ACP MEAs. So as we read there, ACP MEAs objectives are cross-cutting to the Samoa Pathway priorities. These priorities: managing threats from chemicals and waste, natural resources, management for sustainable development, partnerships, resilience building, knowledge, innovation, science and technology. So now, as Bala mentioned, we are also setting targets for the upcoming Samoa +10 Summit to take place in 2024. So based on the recommendations of the Samoa Pathway 2019 and preparing the seeds covered under the ACP MEAs program. Now, the seeds under the ACP MEAs program, as you are aware, the ACP MEAs covers Africa, Caribbean, and Pacific region. So there are a number of small islands that we work with as ACP MEAs. So we are going to prepare seeds covered under the ACP MEAs program for the Samoa Pathway +10 Summit in 2024. In line with this, the following proposals are being made under this program for this period of 2021 to 2024. So one area will be on conservation and sustainable management of biodiversity. So we've talked, we are currently working on the post-2020 global biodiversity framework, where ACP MEAs will support the Samoa Pathway in contributions to conservation and development of the post-2020 GBF. That one we have already been working on. We've just started on that, and we will continue on that. So the other area of intervention is on natural resources management for sustainable development. We shall support seeds to achieve the sustainable development goals. So basically, we are going to support seeds to address their national priorities. And then on ocean governance, our program will review mechanisms for coordinated actions in consultation and partnerships with relevant institutions, agencies such as AOCPS, OACPS, to realize the SDG 14, which is on life below water. Then OACPS call for responsible and effective management of 100% of the coastal and marine ecosystem and its biodiversity. We shall enhance cooperation between UNEP and regional sea conventions and action plans. Then on implementation of international laws as reflected in the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. So we shall be involved in UNDESA and UNESCO UN's Decade of Oceans Science for Sustainable Development. This is their 2021 to 2030 framework that strengthens countries' ability to sustainably manage oceans and coasts so as to achieve the 2030 agenda. Then on ministerial resolutions on biodiversity for the 15th session of the UN Conference of the Parties to the Convention on Biological Diversity by the OACPS Ministerial Statement. So another, our final area of intervention is on management of threats from chemicals and wastes. Our program will focus on integrated implementation of actions aimed to reduce the threats and eliminate the use of chemicals and wastes in terrestrial and marine ecosystems. As follows: promoting integrated environmental health, supporting SEEDs to effectively implement regional sea conventions and action plans as listed. So now looking ahead, that is the brief of my presentation. So looking ahead, the ACP MEAs program aims to develop an action matrix to potentially contribute to this Samoa +10 in 2024. And on this wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening, we are happy to launch this Samoa Pathway and ACP MEAs program document. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mary, and Mr. over to you.
Thank you very much, Bala and Mary, and I apologise, I had a major computer malfunction right at the beginning of the presentation, but I did catch at the end of it. You know, and I do appreciate the way in which this particular program is situating itself in the higher order multilateral instruments such as the Samoa Pathway, linking that to the Agenda 2030, and then looking, of course, at other links, you know, including, of course, to COP15 and the post-2020 GBF. But I'll look first to our colleagues in the European Commission. Orly, if you have any comments to make before I open the floor to OACPS colleagues and then to the wider audience. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Christelle, and thank you, Mary, for the presentation. Just a very practical question. So very good to see all those synergies, and of course this is certainly a good way forward to prioritize this support. However, would this involve some changes in the activity we initially discussed? Would like to know more about the technicalities.
So can I answer that, Crystal? Okay.
Please, Paula, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, in principle, no, we are not looking at any major changes, but essentially we would like to, you know, link or mainstream some of those priorities or ideas that are emerging, both from the 2019 meeting of the Samoa Pathway Review, as well as in preparation for the 2024 Samoa +10. So essentially, it does not involve any new activities, but we would like to actually present the activities that are a part of the ACP MEAs program that links and contributes to the overall strategy. So to an extent, it is just a kind of a co-benefit that we would like to secure by linking up with the Samoa Pathway discussions.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for that response, Bala. Peter, do you have any comments, questions to make, please?
Just to welcome the very clear presentation and the suggestions put forward. I think they are very much aligned with some of the thinking that we have in the OACPS regards the sustainable management and use of, you know, marine biodiversity. And these have, you know, we have received ministerial pronouncements on very specific issues, and I was very happy to note that they are part of this. So we fully support this initiative, and we look forward to the specific activities that will probably cascade from this high-level thinking process. I would like also maybe to invite you. I've just noted that you've mentioned it, but in the presentation it wasn't quite clear that you made a specific reference to the last review of Samoa Pathway implementation. I think it's good to have some reassurance that this has been the case. Thank you.
Bala?
Yes, we have considered the review because even the document, the base was the 2019 review.
Thank you very much. I see Stefania, you've got your hand up. Stefa, please go ahead.
Yeah, I think we need to just take into account that a lot has been done in some regions, coordinating, and I know the activities that have been put in for the Pacific Hub all take into account the Samoa Pathway deliverables. In the Pacific, what we have decided, or what the leaders have decided here, is that we do Samoa Pathway in conjunction with SDGs. So there's one plan that addresses both. So in a sense, it's already been done for the Pacific as far as the activities, ACP MEAs, because they're drawn from those strategic documents that already exist. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stefan, for highlighting that, because I think what it also, what I take from this presentation, but also just the comments, is the, really, if you like, this particular initiative bringing out the need to constantly look at synergies and the connections between these various, the investments across the whole of the OACPS program under the 11th EDF. But I think that, one of the opportunities here is, of course, the OACPS SIDS Forum, which is a subsidiary consultative body under the Georgetown Agreement, offers this opportunity to see how the 37 SIDS of the OACPS can actually work together to be able to feed into the preparations for the Samoa Plus 10 discussions. And while at the same time as well, I think, see how that really contributes to the 2030 agenda, and then all of the other sort of linked up processes, whether that be COP15 or whether it's the second UN Ocean Conference, that will be convened in Lisbon in 2022, a COP27, because there are links with that and so on. So it's a really nice way of being able to kind of illustrate the importance of coordination in terms of how our member states actually reach these objectives. So Bala, I thank you and commend you for this initiative of thinking beyond the program and seeing how the program fits within that bigger and important development context. So it gives it a good framing. So thank you.
Thank you.
If there are no further comments on this particular segment of the agenda, I see we're about 15 minutes behind schedule, so I'm the one that's going to have to move along. But it brings me now to session 5, which is the state of play in the regions, continued, but we now get to hear from the Blue Pacific continent. And we'll hear presentations from SPREP, then also the Secretariat for the Numea Convention, and then from FAO, so in that order. But for SPREP's presentation, I yield the floor to SPREP. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair, and Ladu, will you, thank you. Thank you, Ladu. Will you put it into presentation? Thank you. Thank you, Ladu. Yes, Talafalawa from up here in Samoa. And yes, I am here with the ACP MEA 3 program team, who will be here to collectively present this progress from the Pacific Hub based here in Samoa SPREP. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, as an introduction, I think most of you knows about SPREP, but I would like to raise again and emphasize the mandate of SPREP as a crop agency based in the Pacific region. That is to promote cooperation in the Pacific Island regions to provide assistance to protect and improve environment for present and the future generation. And with its key priorities, these are climate change resilience, island ecosystems, waste management and pollution, environment monitoring and governance, and with the ocean as its cross-cutting issue. And I would like to thank the previous presenter and the commenter from SEFA that when we look at these key priorities, it is closely and directly linked to the Samoa Pathway issues as was raised initially. And also in addition to that, when we look at the ACP MEA 3 program, most of the activities are closely aligned to the Samoa Pathway areas or priority areas. Next slide, please. Yes, just a brief on the partner overview and background. And yes, thanks to the UNEP office, who is currently based here within the SPREP facility, who acts as a guiding agency in the running of the program within SPREP, and also when delivering its activities with the countries in consultation with each other partners. And also within SPREP, it is the Environment Monitoring Governance Program that is taking lead in the delivery of this program amongst other programs within SPREP as an organization. And there is always continuous update to the SLT, the senior leadership of SPREP, as they need to be updated on the progress of this program. And also, we are so fortunate that we are here, first time in our program steering committee, to update you on its achievement so far. Next slide, please. Yes, colleagues, Madam Chair and colleagues, when we talk about activity snapshots, yes, the slide in front of us inform how the program had been delivering its activities based on its core activities, and also may I also highlight that it is also using existing programs and projects within SPREP in achieving the objective of the program itself. And I will be sharing a few on the slide in front of us, and there are many more which I can highlight. And on the project coordination team, it was fully on board in March 2021, and that is a late signing of this project within SPREP. However, even though that is a challenge, we still go ahead in achieving some of its activities throughout the year. And inception meeting with the countries has been an ongoing thing. Usually that we always have this face-to-face meeting, but since now things are done virtually, we managed to achieve about 35% of the countries, of the member countries, in carrying out inception meetings to introduce the importance of this program and the achievement or the delivery of their country national priorities. And another snapshot that I would like to raise at this juncture is the program supported the Pacific delegation in the regional preparatory meeting. And thanks to Bala for always keeping in contact with SPREP and providing guidance on the participation of SPREP as the secretariat, and also the engagement of its member countries in the Substar 24 SBI 3 Regional Preparatory Open-Ended Working Group and OECWG meeting. And yes, we thought of raise this work that the program is creating some connection with the biopharma. It was raised a few times in the presentation yesterday, and we're so happy that yes, the biopharma project here at SPREP is working with the program in seeing what are some of the activities in which we can collectively engage with in addressing or achieving the objectives of the program. And another snapshot which I would like to share this morning is on the 24th Pacific Island Roundtable for Nature Conservation. It was held this year, and it saw the collaboration of agencies that meet to discuss the future collaboration to support Pacific countries and territories to meet regional and global biodiversity goals. And yes, another highlight to that I would like to share is the 10th Pacific Island Conference on Nature Conservation that was held in 2020. Well, with the outcome and the outputs of that conference, through the program, we are able to continue with the delivery of some of the outcome of that conference. And an example is doing work on coastal tourism guidelines for tourism developers and organizations in the Pacific. And colleagues, may I also advise that inform as a snapshot the relationship between these two projects, these two programs, the ACP MEA program and the INFORM project. That is to do with the development of State of Environment report, the development of a national environment management strategy, and undertaking a capacity learning and development training in the area of environment data management and protection. And another snapshot that which I would like to highlight is the Pacific Learning Partnership on Environment Social Safeguards. Yes, this is a partnership that World Bank, ADB, and the University of the South Pacific are part of. And with SPREP as a member, we are able to contribute in the strengthening and upskilling of our member countries in the area of environment social safeguards and environment planning and assessment. And also another snapshot that I would like to raise is the strengthening of the Pacific network of environment assessment. Environment planning, since the Pacific is, there are lots of developments taking place in the Pacific, and this is one area that SPREP through the MG program is strengthening, where we strengthen this network to allow regulators, practitioners to come and network together in strengthening and understanding how we collectively work to make better decisions for infrastructure development. Yes, colleagues, I've been sharing that yes, the ACP program has been connecting with the existing program. One is the Moana Taka partnership. This is a partnership that SPREP has with a China navigation company to address critical waste management issues in the Pacific. So they are coming into the table to see how the program can work with them in addressing some of the delivery required under that partnership. And yes, Bala, thank you to your participation and organizing the participation of the Nairobi and Cartagena Convention in the third Clean Pacific Roundtable. The team viewed that as a successful engagement, even though that is the first one. And I totally agree with the presentation yesterday that this needs to be strengthened. And again, another snapshot that I would like to raise, that the Pacific Hub has put its web link alive now, and we will be still upgrading it. In one of the targets to upgrade it in 2022. Next slide, please. The impact that created in the region. Colleagues, one of the highlights that I would like to raise is the systematic structured management and coordination of the NOMEA Convention within SPREP. I take it that this is one of the highlight of the program within SPREP. It creates opportunities for South-South cooperation and collaborative arrangements with regional MEAs secretariat. And I'll revisit again the third roundtable meeting, colleagues, that from the secretariat point of view, we tend to understand why is it important to have this specific secretariat to manage and coordinate the function of the NOMEA Convention. And thanks to the program for introducing and making this alive again within SPREP as an organization. Effective engagement of Pacific technical officials. That is a big achievement or a big impact within the Pacific region. And again, on ABNJ and BBNJ, colleagues, there was a discussion on this yesterday. And yes, SPREP has been a core team that is coordinated by the Pacific Island Forum, so that it can share its expertise in the area of environment impact assessment, strategic environment assessment, marine and genetic resources, ABNT, and capacity building. And there is also impact on the review of legislation in a few member countries as listed in the screen. And again, I would like to raise the specific learning partnership on environment social safeguards. Yes, the plan was the program is to assist this capacity building face-to-face. However, through this virtual platform that we are currently utilizing, we noticed that the level of engagement widens, and we look into regulators, we look into industries, we look into consultants, institutions. They were all interested in this partnership in the area of environment social safeguards. Yes, environmental assessment and planning guidelines. Chair and colleagues, this is again another good, successful work that the program has been involved with, and it's good that part of the activities under this current phase is to strengthen or develop more environment assessment and planning guidelines that the countries are benefiting from in producing or developing their own to contextualize it into their situation. And I talked about the Pacific Network of Environment Assessment in my previous slide, and also on a regional webinar on soil biodiversity session. The impact is that this increased understanding of soil biodiversity by our member countries. Yes, this year, Madam Chair, the SPREP Council meeting endorsed the Regional State of Environment and Conservation Report 2021. This was a big achievement, and your environment monitoring governance program, through the assistance of other programs that are part of this program, contributed to the development of this report. And better management and data. I'll say this again. This is two big projects within this one program that is working closely together in addressing data gaps and data management. Next slide, please. The lesson learned. Madam Chair and colleagues, with this uncertainty situation we are in, and it is one important lesson that we learned, that the importance of establishing genuine relationship with member countries. Very, very important, because they also are under pressure through the situation they are going through, and it is one thing we learned, the team here at your Pacific Hub really value this as a priority when we deal with them. Consultancy contract extension due to the pandemic, causing delays with responses and feedback on the request of information, review timelines, activities, and modality of delivery. Need for projects of this magnitude to have specialized communication. Yes, with the numerous activities that we are currently taking and delivering, Madam Chair, we would like to we would like to leverage more information and sell the importance of this program to outside SPREP and to our partners. And we sort of thought that, yes, specialized communication person is important to allow this to happen. Virtual meetings requiring support from member countries to cover internet connection charges cost. And one thing we learned from this one, Madam Chair, since most of our meetings are taking place in the night at odd hours in the situation, and there is always little support from government to buy the internet connection and credits and even other necessities to allow them connecting online. And thanks to Bala for your guidance, that we are able to assist them so that they can be engaged. They can be engaged in our program delivery. The need to strengthen South-South cooperation. Yes, I'll say this again because we really learned a lot from the third Pacific Island Roundtable, and this was raised yesterday. And I would like to, again, the team here at SPREP would like to emphasize this point again as something that we really try to strengthen in the coming years. Next slide, please. Yes, gender action. On gender action, colleagues, overall, SPREP has its gender policy endorsed by the senior leadership of SPREP. And I'm happy to inform that through this project, we are strongly advocating for this SPREP gender policy, and we are making sure that activities delivered by the program is aligned with the SPREP gender policy. And on the gender activity in the Pacific Island Roundtable, yes, the focus of that meeting that took place, which involved Cartagena and Nairobi Convention, was targeting the importance of women, youth, and communities in waste management. And I'm so thankful that through SPREP, we are able to coordinate the involvement and participation of these two conventions, including Women in Business on Waste Management here in Samoa. And also, the program, the Pacific Hub, has been involved with some member countries in the involvement of women in business through national events. An example, the one held in Tonga. Next slide, please. The challenges. Yes, yes, we've been hearing this from yesterday, that the impact of COVID-19 development activities, that is a common one amongst all the regions, and the high cost of internet charges and unstable connection. Yes, again, this is an issue here in the Pacific, where poor connection sometimes don't allow the flow of our meetings and also our work processes in delivering this program. And mainstreaming the ACP MEA program within. Again, from the coordinating team, since we are now managing this project, we are slowly liaising, communicating with program leads that this ACP MEA 3 program is to be recognized as part of their work program, which is already existing within their own activities. The changing national priorities due to COVID-19. Yes, this is again another challenge that we are facing with member countries, but it's good. Through the inception meetings, we are able to again strengthen that relationship and understanding to see that yes, on how we can address those priorities in line with their national priorities. And finally, the need for a specialized communication person, which was highlighted previously. Next slide, please. Madam Chair, on the work plan for the next period 2022, I do understand that a detailed work plan has been submitted to Bala, and there will be a presentation made on this work plan. And I have on the screen here some activities that we would like to just share to reveal that yes, there are a list of work plans that the team, the Pacific Hub, will be focusing on in the next period, which is 2022. And to highlight one or two, please. Yes, on 1311, updated Taking the Floor booklet to include a guide on how to chair meetings, lesson learned, practical examples, and other relevant information. Yes, Chair, this is an important booklet because of the number of MEAs, that are housed or managed by SPREP as an organization. So that is an important activity that we would like to address in the upcoming year. And another one I would like to address or highlight in this particular slide is the last activity, which is to assist at least 2 Pacific Island countries on the development of environment standards for end-of-pipe and receiving environment. Madam Chair, this is something that has been identified by the INFORM project, on the importance of data, importance of monitoring, and so I'm so happy to inform that through this program we are able to assist few countries in the development of proper standards, so that it will allow proper monitoring, which will assist in getting proper data for decision making. Next slide, please. And I think this is my final slide, Madam Chair. And yes, the key expectation from Project Steering Committee, the flexibility to divert remaining funds above or below the 25% threshold within the components in circumstances where activities are one-off and not required to be spread out during the project term. The request to approve the revised log frame activities and budget revisions, the recruitment of a communication specialist. Yes, this has been raised a few times in the previous slides, and the support that is needed on the proposed sustainable financial strategy of the NOMEA Convention. I'll talk more on this when I be presenting on the NOMEA Convention. And no cost extension of the program, considering the delayed start of the implementation of activities due to COVID-19. And we totally support the point raised by Bala in his presentation yesterday, the support for existing youth networks in the Pacific. Your SPREP Hub team is ready to work with UNEP and use existing network that are already operating here in the Pacific. Example, there is one under the climate change program, which we can use and see how we can link the work to be part of this program. And finally, Madam Chair, technical support to deal with cross-cutting issues, realizing the Samoa Pathway, yes, gender mainstreaming, and South-South cooperation. Next slide, please. Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and Fafitai Lava from Samoa.
Naka Shope for an excellent presentation, and really for bringing out, I think, just the important synergies between the various programs that that SPREP is delivering under the 11th EDF EU-OACPS. So of course you've highlighted, you know, the ACP MEAs 3 and the work that you've been able to achieve in really the last 10 months, but also I think highlighting for the PSC a number of really key opportunities that predate the signing that are informing the programming and the actions under the MEA 3. So I very much appreciated that. I think as well, just commending the endorsement of the Regional State of Environment and Conservation Report this year, because again, I think that will really inform the preparations for Samoa +10, you know, the Samoa Pathway +10, and a number of other really important initiatives in 2022. So thank you very much. I would now just like to look to our colleagues from the European Commission, Aurelie, and then to Peter from the OACPS. I understand my network is not very good, but I hope that you've heard me. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Christelle, and thank you, colleagues, for the very comprehensive presentation. A few things from my side. So indeed, I also welcome the fact that you're contributing to various programs and trying to create synergies, while of course at the same time having your own activities. Regarding what you mentioned, for example, the work on environmental safeguards and environmental assessment, this is indeed extremely important. There's a lot to be done in this area to make sure that investments which are made in your respective countries are not harming the environment. It's something we work also a lot on our side. And I just wanted to know if what format this activity was taking. Are we speaking about training, capacity building, and for which kind of target? Very good as well that you will work on marine litter. It's something we discussed yesterday, and I believe that there will be opportunity also to exchange practices with other participants of the program, other regions. Tourism certainly as well, certainly a promising sector if done in a sustainable way. And of course protected area, extremely important for the region. What I wanted to comment on is on communication. So I fully agree with you that it's difficult to communicate if you don't have communication experts. On the other side, as European Commission and as International Partnership Directorate, we are less and less supporting the fact that each component of each programs should develop strong communication activities, because very often it's difficult to have an impact. Where you may produce a brochure or web pages, but how many people will read the documents or come on the web page? And so sometimes it's better used of the funds to do some training for young people or outreach to members of parliament, training for journalists. So again, I fully understand that specific skills are needed, but maybe for specific activities that are more related to public relations. And that's it from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Aurelie. Do you want to make some comments, and then I'll open to the floor, and then Chopper can respond, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just to thank the colleagues from the Pacific for a very clear presentation. I note clearly very concrete actions that are going on that, in my view, would be of interest to other regions of the OACPS, and I really take note of the request for communication. I see that there are clearly some unique approaches, for example, the environment and social safeguard, and a number of activities related to the state of the environment report in the region that could be communicated, and not just within the region, but beyond. So I think your request will probably be, I think it has merit, and maybe looking at the communication unit at the overall project office level, how we can link up with the project activities and make sure that the lessons that are learned and are actually shared across all the other project areas. And also just to commend you for the actually big work on at a member state level on CITES, trying to ensure that the legislation isn't so that they are able, member states are able to enforce, and that's one of the key results of this particular program, to enforce some of these agreements. And I take note that your efforts are quite concrete in this regard. So just to commend you in this, and I have no specific comment or question to put across. Thank you.
Thanks very much. I'm just looking through to the wider audience online just to see if anybody else would like to take the floor. I don't see any. Oh, hang on a second. Eleanor, and then Sefa, please. Eleanor.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon. Thank you very much for the presentation. I'm Elena from the European Environmental Bureau, and with the Zero Mercury Working Group, we are focusing our work mainly on mercury. I will be presenting later. I just wanted to ask, are there any activities related to mercury in the Pacific? Because from earlier log frames that I have seen, there were quite a few related to the Minamata Convention. And I'm not clear I heard of any in the presentation, because this is also relevant, you know, to our potential work. I will be referring to that later on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eleanor, for a very specific question. Sefa, please.
Thank you. I just want to complement some of the things that Chope mentioned, and maybe just mention some of the things that we've been doing in addition to ACP MEAs and Inform together with SPREP. One is just with the Moana Taka Plus. I think this is one of the most exciting initiatives in the Pacific. The reason is it's fully public-private partnerships. Basically, it's a partnership with Swire Shipping that allows for free shipping of waste for recycling anywhere in the Pacific to anywhere in the Pacific Rim. All the countries need to do is make sure that they have people to receive it on the other side. Everything else is done. What we have done this year is to start what's called Moana Taka Plus, which is looking at engaging other shipping lines, so we have full coverage of the Pacific, and also to identify the recycling centers in the Pacific Rim countries, Asia, US, Australia, New Zealand, where things can be taken, because we found that one of the biggest problems is for countries to identify where they can take different kinds of waste to. On tourism, we will be publishing together with SPREP and the SPTO a post-COVID waste tourism outlook for the Pacific. That should be out early next year. On the communications network, as I raised yesterday, the Pacific Office will be engaging a UNV. I've set aside 20% of time for that person to cover things other than the core communications. So that may be a way to address this issue of communication officer need. The other thing is SPREP also has a communications unit, so we need to use that fully as well. That the UNV will be there for 5 years, so it's not a short-term fix. The other one is on gender. In addition to the SPREP gender work, there's also a new initiative of all the regional organizations in the Pacific called Women of the Wave. I'm not sure what it is, whether it's women surfing or women, but it's a partnership that that engages all the women working within the regional organizations in the Pacific. and they mobilize to do different things in specific areas when needed. I think SPREP has 3 or 4 women who are leading from their side. On the training component, the use of InfoMEA, one of the things that we've done is last year together with environmental law associations in Fiji, Papua New Guinea and Solomon Islands is to input Pacific content into the InfoMEA curricula. That's been done, and hopefully it'll attract more Pacific participants because they will see the added relevance of that training material. Yeah, I think that was it from, oh, just one more thing with taking the floor. I think what we need to do when we are revising that is also take into account the changing negotiation context and the changed capacity of Pacific Island countries. When you look at taking the floor, it's very basic. I think some of the, or many of the countries are beyond that. So we need to maybe do another version that caters for those who want to take the next step in negotiation capacity building. Yeah? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sefa, for a lot of additional information, but also some very good suggestions in terms of how there could be improvements. But some of what you say as well, you know, really does lend itself to strengthening South-South cooperation and exchange. And I think that what is being brought out for me is huge value and utility in strengthening South-South cooperation between within and between our various regions. So thank you for those. But before I do yield back to you, Chope, I just really wanted to recognise the Moana Taka. I think that that is an enormous leap forward in terms of addressing some of the solid waste, chemical waste issues in the Pacific, in Small Island states. So commend SPREP for that. There was one aspect which I was really particularly interested in as well, and that is, as you talked about the various partnerships that you've been able to establish and secure, the Pacific Learning Partnership on Environmental Safeguards, I think is is of and should be of particular interest. It'd be good, maybe not for this particular meeting, but maybe for a future one, to be able to sort of really share just really what that is, what the ambitions are and what the achievements have been under the PLP for environmental safeguards, because again, it could be a really nice learning experience, but also an exchange opportunities for other regions in the OACPS as we develop further the NEA 3 program and other program investments of the OACPS. So Chope, I'll let you respond to any specific questions or comments before we move to the next part of this session.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to all the guidance and the comments raised. And may I address a few specific ones that were raised this morning on Mercury from Elena. And yes, the SPREP, the plan by SPREP is to continue with the Mercury Initial Assessment Project in 2022, which is a prerequisite to enable states to benefit from any work under the Islands Project. And number 2 is the SPREP will be progressing on the Mercury 3 Black Pacific campaign in 2022. So that is how the current work SPREP is doing, that is planning to do this year and for next year. And Madam Chair, will be happy. I will be on standby upon your advice of the PSC that will be ready to come in and share more on this PLPSS partnership that we noticed that is working really well. And yes, just to go back to the question or the request by Orion on what this training is all about. Yes, it is a training, and it talks about the simple understanding or raising awareness on the environment impact assessment and the importance of community consultation. And there is a need by most specific island countries on the understanding of environmental management plans, and how these are monitored and used in decision making or monitoring of projects. And also the importance of enforcement, enforcement. And there are modules contained in this partnership where we are training stakeholders in having capacity in the area of ESS. And the target audience is the regulators, the consultants, industries, institutions, and we use the Pacific Network of Environment Assessment to sell this information on this training. And we've been receiving huge participation and interest from within the region in terms of this particular program. And thanks to SEFA, yes, we'll be looking forward to the United Nations volunteer that will be coming in for communication, and we'll be looking forward to that. And yes, thank you all on your advice on the communication. Yes, we'll take note of your guidance on communication, and we'll continue to work on that, looking at the specific needs of the region. So those are my responses to the question and the comments raised this morning, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Are there any follow-ups, or can I get permission of the meeting to move to the next? So thank you very much, Chope, for that presentation and for the responses. If we could now move to the NMEA Convention. I see that you're teaming up with Easter. Please go ahead.
Yes, it'll be me. Yes, we requested that we inform the team that I will be presenting. And may I request the slide ladder, please? Yes, Madam Chair, thank you for giving SPREP an opportunity to share a few slides on this particular item on the NOMEA Convention. Next slide, please. Yes, a brief overview, Madam Chair and colleagues. It is a comprehensive umbrella agreement for the protection, management and development of the marine and coastal environment of the South Pacific. The NOMEA Convention plus the two protocols came into effect in 1990. And the two protocols are the protocol for the prevention of pollution of the South Pacific region by dumping, and the second protocol concerning cooperation in combating pollution emergencies in the South Pacific region. And it is a Pacific component of the UNEP's Regional Seas Program. And there are 12 Pacific Island countries which are parties to the convention. And the meeting of this convention takes place every 2 years. And we are so happy that we had our meeting this year. And SPREP is the secretary of the convention. Next slide, please. Yes, when we look at the program, the ACP MEA program, and the activities under the NOMEA program, we noticed that it is closely aligned to the purpose of the NOMEA Convention. And in terms of the result area 2.1 on the reinforcement of Regional Seas Convention, governance framework and associate protocols. Under the activities under this result area, this year, Madam Chair, we've achieved a few activities. The conference of the parties and report submitted to the 30th SPREP meeting. I look at this, Madam Chair, as a highlight of this particular program within SPREP. And a bit of history on this, Madam Chair. when we look at the NOMEA Convention, it's always, the Secretariat always housed under the Waste and Pollution Program. But somehow with this ACP MEA 3 program coming on board, it was a decision made by the SPREP executive for the coordinating team of the ACP MEA Phase 3 program to be the Secretariat. And this allows the proper coordination and preparation of the first the COP meeting, COP16 that took place this year. And the ACP MEA project team managing and coordinating the Secretariat of the NOMEA Convention now. And we look at this as a big achievement where the team focused only on the function and the operation of the convention itself. And it leads to, thanks to UNEP, who provide financial support that allows the NOMEA Convention review. And yes, in addition to the outcomes under this particular result area, Madam Chair, the then Pacific Clean Roundtable side event, Talamo, between the Secretariat of the Cartagena and Nairobi Convention. This is a big learning curve for the Secretariat here in the ESPREP, since knowing the well-established convention under the Cartagena and Nairobi. And it just excites the team here. It just giving lots of excitement within the team here, and knowing and understanding how they are functioning in that region. And in addition to another outcome is the Regional Species Action Plan, now in its final editing. And again, I'll highlight the PLP-ESS partnership as part of the outcome of this particular result area. And the current development of the ABS, Access Benefit Sharing Regional Guidelines for the effective implementation of the Nagoya Protocol. On result 2.2, result area 2.2, under the activities on the screen, the result area 2.2 is development of regionally represented networks, marine protected area, restoring and sustaining the health of the ocean. Yes, Madam Chair. The outcomes of this particular activity is the contract has been signed for the development of guidelines for protected area management effectiveness. Geographical information team now strengthened in SPREP and will engage the team in environment special management capacity building. Madam Chair, may I highlight this particular area of work? It's been there at SPREP so many years ago, but somehow it was not there. Then through this program, we are able to strengthen. This GIS team, which is creating a positive impact in the area of special data management activity. And there has been consultation with some member countries on, take for example, Cook Islands, on the review existing MOU to develop annex activities to implement EBSA and PSSA. Next slide, please. And on result area number 2.3, reduction of the influx of waste, plastic and other forms of human and industrial liquid and solid waste entering the marine environment. Under the activities shared on the screen, the outcome are the progress finalization of the liquid waste standards for member countries. Madam Chair, may I elaborate more on this? This is a need by a country, and it is so good. As I said in my earlier presentation, through the Inform project, these issues were identified, and it was so. The team was so happy that through the ACP MEA Phase 3 program, we're able to address this particular need by the country. So there are 2 other countries which we are targeting to work with in development of their environment standard, so that it will allow proper monitoring and better decision making for environment agencies. The development of the zero draft of the protocol to address marine litter and microplastic, a regional workshop was scheduled for 7 December to discuss the zero draft. And result area 2.4 on communication, awareness, and raising outreach political will. Through the review of the NOMEA Convention, Madam Chair, there is a need to raise the profile and parties' awareness of the NOMEA Convention. The draft plan at this stage is considering the branding of the NOMEA Convention and developing strategic action to monitor and evaluate implementation. This is coordinated by the ACP MEA program team and the other technical programs. Next slide, please. And this is again one of the big achievement. That is the review of the NOMEA Convention. Madam Chair, again, I'll say it again. We are so happy that SPREP as an organization and also the MG program. We are so happy that the UNEP was able to support the program in the review of the convention. It is long overdue, and we are able to do this with the setup of the NOMEA Secretariat under the ACP MEA 3 program. And the objectives of the review are aimed at the governance and operation of the NOMEA Convention, consider the membership of the NOMEA Convention, effectiveness of the convention, effectiveness of the Secretariat in its role and function to service the parties, and also looking at the effectiveness of existing governance arrangement. And the second focus of the review is the implementation of the NOMEA Convention, whether the purpose of the convention is achieved, whether the purpose remains relevant to the current regional environmental challenges, and whether there is a need to expand the scope of the convention. Madam Chair, may I advise the PSC today that yes, the report has been submitted and by the consultant, and a list of 20 recommendations that will guide the project in consultation with the parties. Recommendation, the plan now is to share the recommendation with the senior leadership of SPREP and also with the parties. And as per the COP16 decision this year, an intersessional meeting will convene for the parties to discuss the recommendation from the review. And some key recommendations that I would like to highlight, that the NOMEA Convention be more clearly and explicitly linked with key regional frameworks. Number 2, that the profile and awareness of the NOMEA Convention be more targeted through increased communication and awareness campaigns. And number 3, that a sustainable financing strategy is developed for NOMEA Convention. I shared in my previous slide, Madam Chair, that I will talk more on this in this slide, where it was noticed that the usual membership fee is not that sufficient to carry out proper awareness and undertake the requirement of the convention to its parties. And these are the same, the question that are always raised by the parties on what the NOMEA Convention is doing for them. So having this sort of financial support will lever the existence of this convention and its effectiveness to each party. And finally, a dedicated and permanent staff position for the NOMEA Convention Secretariat is established within SPREP. So those are few recommendations that were brought out to be shared in this project steering committee meeting. And I thank you, Madam Chair, for giving us the opportunity to share with you the progress of this NOMEA Convention work with SPREP. And thanks to the program for allowing this to happen through the Secretariat, which is now managing the ACP MEA Phase 3. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Chope, for walking us through all of the very recent work that's been done regards the NOMEA Convention and its implementation by its states parties. If I may, first, I have a couple of comments, but I'll first look to orally from the European Commission, then to the OACPS I see Sefa's hand up again, and then I may just make a couple of comments. Please, Aurélie.
Thank you very much, Christelle. Just a quick point from my side. Thanks a lot for the presentation and the overview of the activities. It's good to see some progress and satisfaction also from your sides. Maybe just to look at the future, would you like to share with us some of the challenges for the future activities? We are very much aware that some of the results expected had to be postponed due to the circumstances we know. But how do you see the future and activity for 2022? Thank you.
Peter, do you have any comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have to ask the very first one on your presentation on result 2.2 on the recruitment of the GIS team. We would like to have some clarification whether this is under the BioPharma project or the recruitment is done through the MEA 3 program. I think it wasn't so clear to me, especially. And on the review of the convention, I just wanted to know a little bit more on the challenges that were identified during the review. You mentioned quite a number of issues around communication and raising awareness about the convention. And in fact, I wanted to ask, what is the membership of the convention at this time? Does it involve all the member states in the Pacific Island region or just a few? Thank you.
And Sefa, your hands up, please.
Thank you, Christelle. Just a few points with the new permanent or dedicated person to look after the NUMEA Convention. This was core to the design of ACP MEAs 3 for the Pacific Hub. When the new component on oceans was put in, we saw this as the opportunity to strengthen the Secretariat of the NUMEA Convention. Because unlike the other two regions, the NUMEA Convention is not looked after by UNEP, and it's not resourced in the same way that the other regional SEAS programs are resourced. The selection of the coordinator was done also to be able to play this role. Anastasia has a legal background. She's a graduate of IMLI, and she has done foreign affairs work. It's something that I raised recently in the planning meeting with our team at SPREP, that she needs to play, this is her core role according to the ACP MEA's project design. Not so much as the project coordinator, even though that role is also filled by her. One of the things that NUMEA Convention work has been doing really well is work on marine litter. We put in place a marine litter plan, joint activity between SPREP and UNEP. That has led to a project funded by the Australians, the Pacific Ocean Litter Project, a 16 million Australian funded project that is managed through SPREP. There's now a regional declaration on marine litter, a lot of technical work as well, and the region is looking towards a regional instrument on marine litter, either to complement what will come out globally, hopefully after the UNEA discussions, or maybe as a standalone thing initially while the global negotiations continue. Just as a final point, yesterday, I think, or the day before, at the announcement of the Champions of the Earth Award, there was a group of women from Melanesia who are also part of the 4 awardees, together with Mia Motley from PM of Jamaica. They're called the Sea Women of Melanesia, and they go around doing reef monitoring, helping with MPA setups. So I just wanted to highlight that as something that recognized what grassroots people in the Pacific are doing to try and help with biodiversity and climate change and all these other issues that we face. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Sefa. And on your last point, I had forgotten to find out about, in terms of women of the wave, whether I, as part of the diaspora, could help ride the wave. I'm not a very good surfer, not a surfer at all, but nevertheless, be very happy as you know, a Blue Pacific citizen to be able to see how I can provide support with that excellent initiative by the region. But my question, before I yield back to you, Chope and Anastasia, is regards sustainability and sustainable financing. So I take note that, you know, as the project coordinator, is it Anastasia, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, that you know, your key role will be to help, you know, head the new NUMEA Convention Secretariat and its work to ensure that it is effectively implemented. But from a sustainable financing perspective, you know, of course, the ACP MEA 3 program will run its course, and just wanted to get a sense of whether there is a little bit of a plan to follow the same kind of guidelines or pathway as other regional seas conventions in terms of the financing of it, or whether SPREP has a particular strategy to make sure that there is sustainability. So there's a couple of comments, questions from those that have intervened. I yield back to you, Chope. Thank you, and Anastasia.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll invite Anastasia to join in after I address a few comments that and questions raised. First, I must thank all the questions raised and thank SEPA for elaborating more on some of those activities. In terms of BioPharma funding the GIS, yes, through you, Madam Chair, I would like to inform us that the GIS position is funded by BioPharma. And may I add on to that, they undertake a training on GIS, we call it GIS 101, and it attracted lots of interest and the need for more training on GIS within SPREP as an organization, and even with some of our member countries when we introduce the GIS work that SPREP is planning to deliver for them. That's number one. And number two, in terms of future awareness, thank you so much for raising this. Thank you so much for raising this. And may I begin by saying that the current team is managing this for the first time, and we are learning from past team that has been managing the convention. And we are so glad that through this the review of the NUMEA Convention, it has given us some ideas on how to move forward with this. And in terms of awareness, and we are looking forward to the intersessional meeting that is planned for first quarter of next year to present this to the member countries and consult with them on how we are going to work with them in creating awareness. And also may I add that a monkey survey has been sent out to the member countries, requesting them on how the Secretariat will work with them in upgrading or creating awareness or activity of the NOMEA Convention within as parties to the NOMEA Convention. And on the question on the parties, there are 12 parties, 12 countries are parties, and we are targeting to have 14 member countries to be parties in the Pacific Island countries. So hopefully, if they can, this awareness will allow them to become parties. That will be really good. And in terms of sustainability, Madam Chair, yes, again, we are working on. There is a funding available within the ACP MEA program where that support the sustainability or identifying of existing project to support the operation of the NOMEA Convention work. So we are hoping that we'll use that particular funding allocation to support the work of the Secretariat. And of course, we will be using the intersessional meeting for the parties to guide the Secretariat and work with the Secretariat in putting a plan on sustainable financing forward. So I'll ask Anastasia, if you have anything to say? No? Yes? No? No? Okay. I think that's all from our feedback from this end, Madam Chair. And thank you again for the questions and the guidance.
Thank you very much. Are there any follow-up questions or comments from colleagues? Is your hand still up?
Yes, it's a new hand.
Oh, it's a new hand. The other hand, please, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to share. Now I'm not talking as UNEP, I'm talking as incoming Director General of SPREP. One of my key things is strengthening the NOMEA Convention, because I'm convinced that this is something that should be a high priority for SPREP and the parties in the region. If you look at the convention, it addresses all the issues that we need to address in the way that we need to address it. It's integrated, it looks across all three major areas. The problem is we haven't been using it the way we should be using it. So one of the first steps that we'll take is, as DG, I'll take a more active role as the Secretary of the Convention. In the long term, the Secretariat for the Convention will be co-funded from the core budget. That was always the intention when we went for ACP MEAs funding. So I think we need to honor that commitment long term. And it's central to the work and the existence of SPREP, this NOMEA Convention Secretariat role. Yeah, I think that's just the thing I wanted to add in addition to what Chope and Anastasia have mentioned. In terms of the long-term strategy, I think that already exists in the various documents that have been produced by through the NOMEA Convention meeting of the parties and the various reviews that have already happened. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stefan, for outlining your manifesto as Director General. So congratulations as DG SPREP designate from me, and I'm sure from others that are on this call. We look forward to your leadership going forward. But I just wanted to maybe make a suggestion here. I didn't mention this earlier. I was actually quite taken by your intervention, Sefa, regards a regional declaration on marine litter and microplastics, which actually, of course, is a big issue for us in the Pacific and the Blue Pacific continent, but it is a global issue. And I just want to place here some for us to really reflect on this and to see whether there may be some appetite under the ACP MEA3 to be able to pursue this as the OACPS as 79 member countries, 64 of them coastal states, into UNEA 5.2, and then of course the second UN Ocean Conference and other important meetings in terms of having something to say about this challenge that faces the global ocean going forward. But I'm just putting it out there as a bit of a placeholder. So 64 coastal states from the OACPS, and then of course that many more from the European Union. So just something for us to think about as we move now, with permission, to the final segment of session 5, and that is the presentation from FAO. But thank you, Chope and Anastasia, I'll get that right, for that presentation on the Noumea Convention. Manaka. So moving to FAO now, please.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay.
You can, Kaman. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And thank you, Ladu, for taking care of the technicalities this evening. And hopefully this presentation will be smoother than yesterday's. So before I start, I would like to mention that this presentation was prepared together with the former regional coordinator for the Pacific of our program, Francesca Mancini. And with that, Ladu, could you perhaps move to the next slide? So I will give a brief overview of the FAO ACP MEAs 3 activities in the Pacific region, where the focus country is the Solomon Islands. We had a regional coordinator for the Pacific until August 2021, and we have a national coordinator in the Solomon Islands. And regional level activities are implemented with support from the secretariats of SPREP and the Pacific community. The scale-out countries for the Pacific region are Fiji, Samoa, Tonga, and Vanuatu. Next slide, please. Thank you. So regarding our national level activities, so we've recruited a national coordinator in March, and we held a inception workshop in Honiara to refine the work plan with stakeholders. And these stakeholders range from government agencies, including Ministries of Agriculture, Ministry of Environment, and Ministry of Forestry, regional organizations, and 4 well-established grassroots NGOs, and the private sector that was represented by cocoa and coconut companies. Also, and I think which is a major achievement in the Solomon Islands, is that we managed to integrate MEA's activities into the agricultural policy framework for 2021-2030, the so-called Agriculture Sector Growth and Investment Plan 2021-2030, or in short, ASGIP. We also, the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock of the Solomon Islands established an integrated land management committee under the Integrated Forest Management Program, which is implemented by FAO. And with the assistance of FIRST, the FAO EU Partnership Policy Assistance Mechanism, the terms of reference of this committee was broadened to also include biodiversity. So basically we built upon an already existing cross-sectoral committee that will help us guide the implementation of the MEAs activities in the Solomon Islands. And finally, we had intended to recruit 1 regional and 1 local consultant to strengthen curricula of extension services and institutionalize the adoption of climate-smart and ecosystem-based agricultural practices. And this had to be temporarily put on hold due to the financial situation that I have been referring to yesterday. Next slide, please. At regional level, we provided inputs to the framework for nature conservation and protected areas in the Pacific Island region. And this framework, as most of you know, is the biodiversity framework for the region that was adopted at the 10th Pacific Islands Conference for Nature Conservation and Protected Areas that was held virtually in November 2020. At the 24th annual meeting of the Pacific Islands Roundtable for Nature Conservation, we presented the ACP MEAs 3 program. Also, we established an informal tripartite collaboration with SPREP and SPC to agree on joint activities, and we've also started to implement those activities. And then I go straight into the next bullet point, because together with SPREP and SPC, we organized a technical session on soil biodiversity ahead of the virtual session of SBSTA 24. The interesting part of this meeting is that it included national focal points to the CBD, but they tend to look at soils from an environmental perspective. Also there were the national focal points to the Global Soil Partnership, who deal with the productive aspects of soils. It was a very well attended session. We had 50 participants, among which over a third were women, and 13 Pacific Island countries were represented, which will hopefully lead to more long-lasting collaborations across sectors. The outcome, and finally, we held startup meetings for the establishment of the Pacific Regional Advisory Scheme on Pest and Pesticide Management. And an LOA with SPC is to be signed before this year end, with support from FAO Technical Cooperation funds. The importance of this scheme is that it will help to strengthen the capacity in the Pacific region to make informed decisions on pesticide registration and management through pooling of available expertise on pesticides. And well-informed decision-making will result in a reduction of pesticide risks for human health and the environment. So SPC will provide the coordination and technical oversight to the establishment and functioning of the scheme. And they will also explore phasing out of highly hazardous pesticides and identify and test biopesticides and biological control agents. So again, additional funds to make this happen were leveraged from FAO Technical Cooperation Program. Next slide, please. Regarding gender equality and the empowerment of women and youth, as for our other activities, gender and youth perspectives were integrated at the different stages of work planning, amongst others during the national consultations and the design and implementation of activities. We also undertook stakeholder analyses to produce gender and youth differentiated data and information that is considered critical to evidence-based policy development. Next slide, please. Regarding the challenges encountered, we realized that Solomon Islands is quite a challenging country to operate in. Due to the limited qualified expertise locally available and the civil unrest. Also, the country had complete border closure to non-residents due to COVID-19 since the start of the program, which means that no mission has been undertaken, and we could also not deploy any regional or international experts. The departure of our regional coordinator has also been difficult and has delayed activities because we were not in the possibility to rehire due to our financial situation. This has slowed down the activities in the region. And finally, as for the other, which has been mentioned by many other speakers, the Zoom methods are fantastic, but they also have their disadvantages, and we did notice also in this region that there is a Zoom fatigue, as we tend to identify it. Next slide, please. Regarding the work plan for 2022, at the national level and at policy level in particular, we intend to implement the national work plan activities that have been validated by the Ministry of Agriculture. So I did not list all the activities, but would like to highlight a few. I would basically start with the second one, as I see that we're short of time. The second one I would like to highlight because it's part of the ASGIP, which I talked about earlier. And so we will strengthen plant breeding and variety development capacity of key cash crops, but also of traditional food crops. The last point I've also mentioned, this is something in the pipeline that is really ready to go, to build capacity of extension officers and small-scale producers on ecosystem-based practices and the conservation of agrobiodiversity. This activity will mainly consist of reviewing and updating existing curricula. Next slide, please. Regarding the field level activities in the Solomon Islands, we also have quite a few interesting activities in the pipeline. Co-funded by the Technical Cooperation Program of FAO, we will conduct biopesticides and biological control farm research trials on selected crops, and we will focus on crops that have the highest use of pesticides, as these are the crops that are considered to be most important to have alternatives for. A baseline survey will be held on native cultivars and their associated indigenous practices. The priority focus will be on species with high nutrient values and or high market demand, and those that have potential or importance in certain regions of the Solomon Islands, like the ngali nut or breadfruit. We will also collaborate with commercial cocoa plantations, where the focus will be on organic certification and the establishment of cocoa farmer networks. And finally, in synergy with the Green Cities Technical Cooperation Program, we will work together to identify value addition opportunities for urban and peri-urban produce for local markets. Next slide, please. And then in terms of the regional activities, so we've already had discussions with SPREP and SPC to work on a technical guidance document on integrated agricultural systems for the conservation and sustainable use of biodiversity and ecosystem services. This is a document that is intended to contribute to the post-2020. It will showcase successful examples of integrated agricultural systems and approaches that have shown to provide multiple benefits in terms of the conservation and sustainable use of biodiversity and of soil biodiversity in particular. It will also showcase examples of how we can reduce pollution caused by the use of external inputs such as chemical pesticides, and how to enhance ecosystem functions and services in and around production systems. The second activity is, this was already mentioned because we've laid the ground for this activity, is the establishment of the regional pesticide registration scheme. So I will not elaborate further on this. And the third activity is mainstreaming biodiversity in agriculture will be brought as priority area for the Pacific region at the forthcoming FAO Regional Conference of Asia and the Pacific. And just for clarity, so the FAO Regional Conference is the highest governing body of the organization at regional level, and it provides an official forum where ministers of agriculture and high officials of member states from the same geographic region meet to elaborate on challenges and priority matters related to food and agriculture. So the 36th conference offers a good opportunity to FAO member countries from the region to guide FAO's work on mainstreaming biodiversity for food and agriculture in the Pacific. Our team will attend the conference, and we will support the discussions on future biodiversity related work across agricultural sectors in the Pacific. And while the focus will be on the agricultural sectors, we will be working together with the Blue Transformation team from FAO in the Asia and the Pacific office on this particular issue. I think next slide, I think, is probably the last. Yes, this was it on my side. Thanks a lot, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you Thank you very much, Kim, for your presentation. And you know, in light of the fact that the regional coordinator has just recently left, I think that you did a great job standing in. I'm sure that there are a couple of questions and comments, noting, of course, that the higher order financial issue and arrangement between the European Union and FAO has had some impacts. But I look to Aurelie for comments, questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Christelle, and thank you, Kim Han, for the presentation. From my side, I have a few points. One is basically to ask you how those activities are building on the previous phases, and if there was some lessons learned that you could share regarding the activity you are proposing now. Regarding the guidance on integrated agricultural system for conservation of biodiversity, this is very interesting. Would this be focusing on the region especially, or is it of a global nature? And just to say that we of course very much welcome the mainstreaming of biodiversity across the upcoming FAO regional conference. Indeed, this is the type of intervention that would really benefit our action at a more global level. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aurelie. I'll just look to, before you answer, Kim Ann, could I just maybe, for efficiencies, just seek any comments, questions from my colleague Peter of OACPS?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and just to thank you, Kim Ann, for the clear presentation. Regarding the initiative, the Blue Transformation, I think it is commendable to bring it in, given the important role of the blue foods in the region. And I just wanted to know how it links with this particular program, in terms of whether the initiative is already funded or whether it is going to draw from the program funding from MEA 3. Thank you.
Thank you. A couple of questions, but I see Aurelie's hand up again. Aurelie, do you want to make another additional comment before I yield?
Yes, sorry, very quickly, I forgot to share with you, but of course you are aware the European Union is proposing a new regulation on deforestation. And basically the idea would be to prevent the main commodities to enter the EU market if they are linked to deforestation. And I just mentioned that because you certainly have seen the document that it would cover, for example, cocoa, soy, coffee, timber, and so of course it's very important for you as FAO and also for the producers in the region to be aware that this is a proposal not yet of course adopted because it has to go through Council and Parliament. It's a regulation, but it's good to have this in mind.
Thank you very much. Kim Ann, you have the floor.
Thank you, and thank you for having raised all these very pertinent questions. So I'll first address those that were made by Aurelie. In terms of the activities that are building on the previous phase, these are mainly the activities that relate to pesticide management. So, for example, the establishment of the pesticide registration scheme is a follow-up on the work that was done in the region beforehand. The activities that are related to the mainstreaming of agriculture as the technical guidance document, those are activities that are new under the ACP MEAs 3. With regard to the technical guidance in particular, it's very interesting the issue that you're raising, because the original idea and I think we also presented it in that way at the last steering committee, was to more or less update, but then with a post-2020 perspective, the already existing technical guidance that was produced for the Pacific region in 2016. And then we had several meetings where we had the different regions together. And there are so many similarities, for example, especially on small island development states where the Caribbean can learn from the Pacific and vice versa, that we will attempt at least to have an umbrella document where we will have specific sections for each region, but where we will focus also on the synergies between this region, the same issues and best practices that could perhaps be perhaps worked in one region and could be applicable in the other. So this is relatively new, and the idea is we have discussed it also with the CBD Secretariat. They are very enthusiastic to participate, and we will work and we will approach early next year the different partners in the regions. Regarding the mainstreaming biodiversity at the Asia Pacific Conference, yes, we are very proud actually that this paper was selected. So it was prepared mainly by Francesca Mancini, and we didn't actually expect the paper to be selected, and it was, and it shows actually the commitment by FAO to mainstreaming biodiversity. So this is a very, very positive aspect. And the interesting thing of this paper is that we will ask the region to develop a regional action plan following the global mainstreaming biodiversity strategy of FAO. So this would be really excellent if accepted by the member countries. Thank you also for pointing out, I wrote it down also yesterday, the new regulation about deforestation. We will keep an eye on it because it's not only relevant to this region, but also, for example, yesterday there were activities in Niger, in the Caribbean in terms of agroforestry. So yes, thank you for pointing this out, and I think we need to be very conscious of this development. As to blue transformation, so here I need to take one step back. So initially, since under this project we're not particularly focusing on aquatic biodiversity, originally the paper that was going into the conference was focusing essentially on terrestrial biodiversity. And colleagues in the region rightfully pointed out that the blue transformation program needs to be there. And so we are now actually under discussion with them to see how we can link that and to have a broader perspective type of document. As to funding, funding in this particular paper is not an issue. It's really to bring forward the concerns in relation to conservation and sustainable use of biodiversity in the region at the conference, and to have a discussion and to see what else FAO can do in the region to strengthen its work. So with that, I hope I answered all the queries and questions.
So thank you very much, Keman. And I think that, you know, particularly for the Blue Pacific continent, it is about 98% if you exclude Papua New Guinea ocean and 2% land. And so I think, you know, one needs to really think about that. And when you think about ridges to reefs, in fact, many of the islands are completely coastal and oceanic in nature. But I also just wanted to, you know, maybe make the suggestion, because I did notice that you mentioned a letter of agreement with the Pacific community, with SPC, and a couple of activities, you know, such as this technical guidance between FAO, SPREP and SPC, that under the current circumstances and particularly under the current circumstances with COVID-19, in terms of implementation, I would, wherever possible, recommend that using the existing regional architecture could be, you know, a very good way of ensuring effective implementation. And so utilising existing national and regional capacity, notwithstanding your comments regards the Solomon Islands, but nevertheless, you know, looking at those as first stops or first options before flying in international consultants into the various regions of the OACPS. So just something to be mindful of, particularly in the case of the Pacific, but in fact probably carries for the other 5 regions of the OACPS. So just to mention that. All right.
Thank you. This is very useful.
Thank you. So we're at 19:05. So my time management is not nearly as good as Aurelie's time management of yesterday. And so I apologise for that. But I think that all that has been said has needed to be said. We're now at 19:06, but I think it might be quite good to have a little bit of a comfort break, if that's okay. I can see Bala online kind of nodding his head, but rather than 10 minutes, if I could perhaps just request that we have a little bit of a break for 5 minutes. Is that okay? Can people hear me? Because my network quality is really...
Yes, we hear you. Yeah, that's fine. I support you.
Okay. So, all right. So 5 minutes. So if we can reconvene at 10 minutes past the hour, which means I'm only actually giving you 4 minutes, according to my clock.
So now you know why there is a long silence for the suggestion.
If we can come back here at 10 minutes past the hour, yeah, that'll be great. 4 minutes time. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Krista. Bye.
Hello? Peter? All right. I wonder whether everybody is back from your very, very truncated comfort break. Orally, it's just you and me, I think.
I can still see the other participants. Yes.
I know I can see everybody, but I did just wonder whether people are back. I'm not certain. I know you and I are here. Bala, are you back? You would think that he would pop up. We might have to give him a rest. Give him another minute. But I just noticed that yeah, I'm completely confused with the time. I'm in Brussels time, and my head is brain dead. I've been working since early morning and chairing different meetings. So the time zone and this agenda is really not helping me very much. But I know that we're behind by about half an hour. Can you hear me, Arlene? You're frozen.
I can hear you. I'm here, and I see that we have the two colleagues from the convention that are now online. So if you want, we can start.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we should. Excellent. Now you've unfrozen. I don't know. My computer's really not behaving very well tonight. I think it's tired. But if we may then start, hopefully everybody's joined us back again. And so we're now into the 6th session of updates from the secretariats of the various MEAs. I see that there are presentations from, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 presentations from secretariats, MEA secretariats. And so if we may take all of those presentations, I apologise if I'm going to push you to try and be really succinct and to really focus on your strategic engagement in the various regions of the OACPS. And then thereafter we'll hear from Elena of the European Environmental Bureau. And then following that, we'll have discussions if all agree. So I now will yield to Giovanna. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Crystal. Just a question. Do you have the 10 minutes or you would like me to do it in a shorter time?
Well, the thing is, I'm fine with that if people don't mind staying on longer towards the end of the meeting. I don't want to, I realise that I've been quite useless at keeping time, so we're about half an hour behind. So if you can actually really focus your interventions, I would very much appreciate that to see if we can claw back some time. But I will also be asking people to maybe just stay a bit longer to finish the meeting and to be efficient and effective in that. But please go ahead.
Thanks. Yes, so can you see my screen? Sorry.
Yes.
No, you can't.
Okay.
Yes.
Now we can.
Okay. Sorry, I'm having a problem here. So you can see my screen, but how can I? Okay, good. So I can also move the presentation. So thank you very much. My name is Giovanna Chiodi, and I work at the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Convention Secretariat. I'm not having access to my notes, but that's fine. So my presentation, I try to organize it with a quick overview of the status of the BRS Convention in the ACP regions. The second part on the capacity building needs of the parties to the BRS conventions in the ACP regions. And then the third part on the current activities under the BRS conventions relevant to the ACP program. Sorry. So I will not of course spend much time on this, on all this information okay, good. Sorry, I will start again. I'll not dedicate much time to this slide, but since you're sharing our presentations, I found this was a very nice summary of each of the BRS conventions. So the Basel Convention on the control of transboundary movement of hazardous wastes and their disposal, the Rotterdam Convention on the prior reform, the consent procedure for certain hazardous chemicals and pesticides international trade, and the Convention on persistent organic pollutants. Since many parties in the ACP MEAs 3 program are working on marine litter and plastic waste, I would like to draw your attention to the fact that in the key provision of the Basel Convention, we have the minimization of the generation of hazardous and other wastes and the environmental sound management of hazardous and other wastes. Because usually the Basel Convention is very much linked to the transboundary movements of hazardous waste, and not to these 2 key provisions that also working on other stages of the life cycle of plastics. And also that among the 30 persistent organic pollutants that are listed in the Stockholm Convention, we have a few that are plastic additives. On this slide, you can see the status of ratification of the conventions in the ACP countries. You have almost universal adoption of the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Convention in the ACP regions. The exceptions that that you can see here are South Sudan in Africa, for the Basel Convention, South Sudan, Haiti, Fiji, Niue, and Solomon Islands. For the Rotterdam Convention, you have a larger list, which includes Angola, Central African Republic.
Your slides aren't moving, Giovanni.
Sorry? Sorry?
I don't know. I'm not seeing the slide that you speak. Are you speaking to a particular slide? Because
Yes.
I can't see the information that you're referring to.
You can see the status of ratifications in the ACP countries. Because that's what I see my screen. Is my slide moving?
Yes, we are there.
But I'm not sure with others.
We can see.
Yes, yeah,
I can see.
So shall I continue?
Oh, you can all see it. I wonder what's wrong with me then.
I can see it as well.
I don't know why. Very interesting. Okay, please keep going. Don't worry about me. Keep going.
It's okay.
Please,
so,
yes, keep going.
So for the Rotterdam Convention, we have it's ratified also by all countries except Angola, Central African Republic, Comoros, Egypt, Seychelles, and South Sudan, Bahamas, Haiti, and Saint Lucia, Fiji, Kiribati, Micronesia, Nauru, Niue, Papua New Guinea, and Solomon Islands. And for the Stockholm Convention, almost all countries have ratified except for South Sudan and Haiti. And all the countries in the Pacific have ratified the Stockholm Convention. Each convention has evolved throughout the years, and the Basel. So here are a few of amendments of the relevant amendments of the convention. So for the Basel Convention, we have the ban amendment that prohibits OECD countries of all transboundary movements of hazardous wastes to non-OECD countries. And this amendment has not been adopted by all parties in the ACP region. The 2019 amendments to Annexes 2, 8, and 9, which are called the plastic amendments, related to plastic waste, they've been effective as of 1st January 2021 for all parties to the Basel Convention. Then for the Rotterdam Convention, you have all these amendments to Annex 3, which means that new pesticides and industrial chemicals have been listed to the Rotterdam Convention. And the enter to force date is specified in each decisions. Sorry, it moved. Okay. And then you have also the amendment adding the new Annex 7 that is related to mechanisms of compliance. And it has entered into force on 6 November 2020 for all parties except those that had not notified non-acceptance. And it entered into force for all parties in the ACP regions. None of them notified non-acceptance. And then for the Stockholm Convention, the amendments are related to listing new chemicals, also again to the convention. The latest one that was listed in 2019 entered into force in 3 December 2020. And it entered into force in 3 December 2020 for almost all countries, except those that we call opt-in, that have to ratify each amendment to the convention. And in the ACP countries, regions, we have a few countries that are part of this list of opt-in parties, which are Botswana and in Africa, and then in the Pacific we have Micronesia and Vanuatu. As a result, for example, for Vanuatu, none of the chemicals listed since COP4, which include 18 chemicals, are entered into force. If you want to have more information, detailed information on the status of ratification, which are the focal points for each convention, submission of information, national implementation plans, national reports, we can easily find this information on our website. And I will share this presentation with you, so you have the link here, and we can select the country and have all this information easily available. In terms of capacity building needs, the BRS Secretariat performs a needs assessment every 4 years. And you can see here some of the results of the recent needs assessment that was developed in 2019, and that will be taken into account to develop our technical assistance plan for 2022-2025. That is currently under development and will be considered at our next conference of at the face-to-face segment of our conference of the parties next year. In terms of capacity building needs, so I will just walk you through the slide. In Africa, the needs are, the priorities were considered support on national coordination for implementation of the Basel Convention and on legal and institutional frameworks. For the Caribbean, legal and institutional frameworks as well. You can see that support with legal and institutional frameworks is something that appears very often. On the Pacific, it was requested support on control procedures for the transboundary movements of hazardous waste and waste minimization. In Africa, it was the priority would be more assistance for customs and on legal institutional frameworks, and monitoring and reporting of incidents related to severely hazardous pesticides formulations, and support on regional cooperation. From the Caribbean, the high priorities on customs as well, and the monitoring and reporting of incidents related to severely hazardous pesticide formulations, and alternatives to Annex 3 chemicals, which includes pesticides and some industrial chemicals. In the Pacific, the support was requested on legal and institutional frameworks again, and on information exchange obligations under the Rotterdam Convention. And for the Stockholm Convention, it's less clear how the priorities are most of the parties request more support on management of POPs, stockpiles, and wastes, an intention to reduce the POPs, legal and institutional frameworks again, the newly listed industrial POPs, and on the development of national implementation plans. And the countries request less support on national coordination, although it was mentioned that in Africa they had some challenges with national coordination, and you can see here Africa, for the Basel Convention at least, they're asking for more support. They need less support for national reports, and also less on POPs pesticides, and also in the Africa region the focus is less on the new industrial POPs. Okay, in the implementation of this, when we develop our technical assistance plan, we always engage with other parties and the parties of these conventions, but also non-party states. the Basel and Stockholm Convention regional centers, UNEP-FAO, and their regional, sub-regional, and national offices, and other relevant actors such as the IOMC and intergovernmental or other organizations. Here, from this slide until I think the next 6 ones, I mention all the relevant BRS work to achieve some of the expected outputs of the ACP MEAs program. But because I'm mindful of the time, I'll not go through each of them, but we have developed technical guidelines and other tools that were approved by our conference of the parties on several areas of work. So, for example, we have technical guidelines to develop on this expect output 1.1 enhanced capacity processes and infrastructure to enforce and comply with selected MEAs. We have developed inventories, guidelines to develop implementation plans, guidelines to develop legal frameworks. Here we can see you have developed capacity building projects on programs on several topics, including different waste streams such as household waste, electronic waste, and plastics, also mercury waste. Yes, here saying the work on other asbestos, on emergencies, and extended producer responsibility and financing systems. Yeah, on legal frameworks, on management plans and strategies. So the list is very long, so I'll not go to each of them. But noting that to improve our cooperation with the other partners inside of the ACP MEAs program, what we've done is that we've reached out to each regional hub directly to offer our support in the implementation of the ACP MEAs program. And as a result, we have had a very good cooperation with the CARICOM on their recent training on the environmental sound management of waste containing mercury added products. But I'm not sure we've collaborated other partners on topics that are under the scope of the BRS Convention. That's, yeah, perhaps when you have a discussion after this session, it would worth take the time to discuss how we could improve our collaboration. Since many of us are work on plastics in ACP regions, perhaps this could be an entry point to improve our cooperation. And on this, I developed this slide only on plastic waste related to the expected output 2.3 measures to reduce the influx of waste entering the marine environment. The relevant BRS work on this is related to these amendments that I mentioned previously to annexes 2, 8, and 9, which are called the plastic waste amendments, and that clarify the convention and hence the control of the transboundary movement of plastic wastes. And the secretary is still working to get considering additional constituents of characteristics in relation to plastic waste that should be added to other annexes to the convention. We also have developed technical guidelines on plastic waste that's currently being updated. Considerations for national plastic waste environmentally sound management strategies, and the plastic waste inventory toolkit. We also have in the framework of the plastic waste partnership, we've worked with around 4 thematic areas. This plastic waste partnership under the Basel Convention works then on prevention and minimization of plastic waste, collection, recycling, and other recovery, include financing related markets, transboundary movements of plastic waste, and outreach activities. We have some representatives from the Abidjan Convention in the Plastic Waste Partnership, but I haven't seen others from others that are in the ACP MEAs program. Under this Plastic Waste Partnership, you have today 23 projects selected for implementation, which include 8 countries in Africa and 1 in the Pacific. And in this small grants program on plastic waste, we have a series of pilot projects that are implemented by our regional centers. And you have 11 countries in Africa benefiting from this small grants program on plastic waste. And also the awareness raising materials, we have developed a series of materials such as collaboration with our partners, such as this drawing plastics and this vital graphics. Our engagement in the ACP program 3 has been to promote the convention's work, which means the use of our guidelines and tools that were developed and adopted by the Conference of the Parties to the conventions. We would like to enhance the complementarity of actions and avoid overlaps, and approach the Basel and Stockholm Convention regional centers for their expertise and knowledge on specific needs of ACP countries. So just to remind, we have this regional centers in Africa, based in Nigeria, Kenya, Senegal, South Africa, Egypt, and Nigeria. In the Caribbean, we have our regional center for Basel in Trinidad, and the Basel and Stockholm regional center based in Panama. And we have our regional center for the Basel Convention in SPREP. And we also, in the framework of the MEAs program, would like to share lessons learned and experience with the conventions for. Yeah, I think that's all from my side. Perhaps just would like to spend the discussion time to discuss how we could improve our cooperation, as I mentioned, because I perhaps it's my impression, but I don't have the impression that we are being able to support more the work of the other colleagues in the ACP MEAs 3 program. So that's all from my side. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Giovanna. But I must admit that it's been very difficult for me to really have followed your presentation, unfortunately. But I think it's just an issue with my my technology this evening and my connectivity. I did put a note in the chat for Aurelie to see if she could chair the remainder of this evening's sessions, because it's almost impossible for me, but I will try to follow as best I can. However, before I rest the chair to Aurelie, could we please keep our presentations as short as possible, because we're running even further behind. But I do accept your comments I caught right at the end about having greater collaboration and cooperation, because it really is all about states parties to these various conventions implementing and meeting their commitments to the different agreements that they have signed and ratified. But Aurelie, if you could please take over, because it's hard for me at the moment.
Sure, Christelle, I'm here. I can take over. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes,
yes,
you can
clearly,
go ahead. Yeah.
Others not so
Okay.
well.
Yeah, Christelle, I'm happy to take over. Don't worry. So I would propose we move to the Minamata Convention. Marilene, I see you're already here. And maybe to help you with the 10 minutes, I will appear showing this sign when you have 3 minutes left. Okay? Thanks a lot.
Sorry, I'm just managing the unmute and the share screen. One moment. I don't think you see my screen yet. Is that correct?
Yeah, we still
Yes, we don't see your screen.
Okay, sorry. Just a bit slow here. Okay, so
Yes,
I will
it's
try to move super quickly. So thank you and hello to everyone across the globe. Thank you for having me here to give you an update on the Minamata Convention. At a very brief snapshot, we have 135 parties. Actually, I think yesterday it became 136. We have done a lot of Minamata initial assessments and ASGM national action plans, many of which are already completed and posted on our website. And this year has been extremely busy for us. We have been conducting intersessional work on articles, the review of articles 4 and 5 on products and processes using mercury, work on article 9 on releases to land and water of mercury, article 11 mercury waste thresholds, and then our effectiveness evaluation. So that the intersessional work is ongoing. We have had our first segment of our COP4. It was held online at the first week of March, and it will resume in person in Bali, Indonesia, our COP presidency, in late March of next year. We've been doing a number of other things, which I want to go into a bit more detail for you on, but of course all our COP documents were prepared well in advance of the November session and can be found on our website. Some good resources for understanding more about what we do. Our progress report of 2020 was a quick snapshot, but we also are now in our second season of Minamata Online, in which we do training, online information sessions, some of which are giving an in-depth look at our articles and what the obligations are for the parties, others of which are more on the science end and data and enhancing understanding, and then others simply about preparations for the COP. All those sessions are recorded and posted online on our website. So particularly for the sessions that explain particular articles like the 2020 products deadline, I highly recommend going back and looking at the presentations or even listening to the full recording. We will be getting a lot more information from our parties at the end of this year, at the end of this month now, when our first full national reports are due. We had short reports that were due in 2019. We had a really good rate of reporting, about 89%, and we hope that we match that and surpass that for the full national reports. And I do want to point out that those reports are not only for parties to talk about what they've done to implement their obligations, but also the challenges they're facing in doing so. So that will be a really good way for us to further build out our capacity building and technical assistance efforts, and hopefully yours as well. This is just a quick snapshot of the sort of the framework, the logic of our convention. It's a life cycle approach. It starts by keeping mercury, which is an element underground, by curtailing mercury mining. It also reduces the use and presence of mercury in the economy, in industry, in society, which is currently widespread through a number of industrial processes, in products, in trade, and from other supply sources of elemental mercury, which then become stocks or in some cases waste. So there's a lot of provisions to take care of that use of commodity mercury. And then also reducing mercury to the environment that comes from emissions from a number of sources and also releases to land and water. So it's not just artisanal and small scale gold mining, but it's emissions from a number of industrial sectors, waste incineration, the coal combustion in the power sector, etc. So, and of course we have all the articles that provide the support to make those things work well and function. The next 3 slides I will go through very quickly. I will not attempt to go through this in detail, but it does indicate that we have time-bound obligations that our parties face, and those are increasing in the next biennium and 4-year period. Our parties are going to have to meet a lot of hard obligations, especially with respect to emissions, phase outs of some industrial processes that use mercury, and then continued work on supply and trade provisions, and really making sure that the work on prior informed consent for any mercury imports is taking place. That's very shorthand for the fairly lengthy set of provisions on supply and trade. In addition, there are a number of non-time-bound articles. In other words, things that our parties need to be doing all the time. One is sound storage. Others deal with health, information exchange, public information, and of course, implementation and compliance issues and reporting. So I know I'm going through this very quickly, but there's too much information to convey. We do have a financial mechanism, as I think many of you know. It is made up of the Global Environment Facility and the specific international program. I do want to show here the number of projects that have been awarded to date under the specific international program, which I manage at the Secretariat. We just awarded, the governing board approved 9 more. So those are in the process of finalizing project documentation and moving toward a legal agreement before they are implemented. But for all of these, as well as the GEF projects like the Islands project, we try to work hard to make sure that there is complementarity and not overlap. And I think it's also important that the work that you are all doing under the ACP program also has an awareness of these projects so that we can leverage one another and not duplicate efforts. This I'm not going to go into detail on either, but just to show you that mercury is traded widely in many parts of the world. And that is something, of course, that we are working hard to regulate and reduce. And then just to highlight emissions too, because the point I want to make on emissions is that there are many sectors that our parties need to address through the convention. It's not just the kind of more well-known or more talked about sectors like artisanal and small-scale gold mining or mercury-containing products, but there's a lot of sectors. So I hope that moving forward, we can have more discussion about some of the very specific needs of various regions and parties going forward in this regard. So I feel like I've probably forgotten a lot of information that I would love to convey to you. I do want to point out that within the Minamata Convention Secretariat, I'm the person that's covering not only our specific international program and all our relations with the Global Environment Facility, but our more broad capacity building and technical assistance program. So I look forward to your advice as to how I could be more engaged with all your various efforts, and apologies in advance at the limited amount of time that I have available to do so. So I think with that, that is it, and I can stop sharing my screen.
Thank you very much, Marianne. You made it in 10 minutes, so thanks a lot, and thanks for the sharing all the information. It's always good to see that there's an increasing number of parties and that at the same time there's progress on implementation. So thanks for sharing that. I propose we move to the next presentation, but of course we keep our feedback and general remarks for the end of the presentation of the various conventions. So if I can ask Sophie to present CITES convention, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for the invitation to this meeting. This is my first interaction with the ACP MEAs program. I hope you can see my screen because Aurélie just froze there. Everything okay?
Yes, yes.
Okay, good. Thank you.
I can see you, but I cannot see your screen yet. It's black.
Let's see, why is it black? It shouldn't be black. Not black on my side. It's red. Okay, I'll continue. Hopefully it will calm. This one. It's weird. Anyway, it's not much on my screen anyway right now. I'll continue talking and the screen will come or not. I don't mind. So I'm new officer in charge of the outreach and projects unit in the CITES Secretariat, and have until very recently been a legal officer here. And so I have not had much interaction with this project at all. But I'm happy to, I've been listening in since yesterday, and it's quite interesting to see how you try to make this work. I was going to give you a few facts about the convention. It's an old convention, one of the oldest MEAs, adopted in 1973 and entered into force in 1975. So we've been around for a long time, not quite 50 years yet, but we're getting there. We have almost universal participation.
If I may interrupt, did
Yes.
you modify the version you sent me, or I can share from my side?
I've added a few things, but you can try. I've added quite a few things, actually. So it doesn't work at all? You can't see my screen at all? Go ahead, if you can, if you can
we
share.
See you, we see you, we hear you well, but we don't see the slides.
Maybe Ladu can present, and Sophie,
yes.
you can just speak for any changes that are there.
Okay,
yeah?
That's fine. So as I said, we have almost universal participation, 184 parties now, with 183 countries plus the EU. And we have almost all the countries in the Caribbean except for Haiti, all but one country in Africa. We're missing South Sudan, and quite a few countries in the Pacific, but not as many. Pacific is where we have the most potential to get more parties on board, and I'm
Sophie, are you still with us?
No, I think she's frozen.
It's not me, it's Sophie. Thanks, Gala, for
I think her internet connection, probably because even her video is frozen.
Yes, I can see now.
Sorry.
Okay, we leave her a minute just to check if she's reconnecting, or otherwise we will move to the CBD convention.
Next is CMS.
Yes.
Sure. I think she's leaving and planning to come back.
Okay, so indeed, we move to CMS. It's Maria or Laura, if you are with us.
Hello. This is Laura.
Sophie, you're back.
Sophie is back.
You're muted.
Sorry, I have some issues with my computer. This is the third time that it closes the Teams completely. Do you want me to try again, or we
Yes,
listen to
please.
Laura first?
Yeah, yes, please. Sorry, Laura. We will continue with Sophie.
And now you see the screen, I think, right?
Yes,
Yes.
it's projected, so you can continue.
Okay. So I don't know where I lost you, but I was just saying that the Caribbean is in the Pacific. We have quite a few countries that are not yet a party to the convention, and I'd be happy to discuss with colleagues about if there's anything we can do to improve that situation. I didn't mention that the convention is a legally binding instrument that regulates import, export, re-export, and introduction from the seas of the specimens of about 38,000 species of wild fauna and flora, with the aim to ensure that such international trade is sustainable, legal, and traceable. So that's a mouthful, but that's in the essence of our convention. All trade must be in accordance with the convention, and otherwise it is illegal. And by trade, as I said, we mean import, export, re-export, and introduction from the sea. And that's plants and animals and products that comes from those plants and animals. I wanted to just quickly mention as well that there are efforts underway in many parties in the ACP to improve the regulation of trade in wildlife and to combat illegal trade. And I'll come back to that towards the end, just to show you a little bit what has been happening. So we have had a difficult period as everybody else. We had lots of plans for workshops and activities which we'd had to rethink. But we did a workshop online in collaboration with CARICOM and with the participation of UNCTAD in June this year to discuss how we could further advance the introduction of e-permitting systems in countries. And we're going ahead with more support in that regard with the Bahamas, as was mentioned yesterday. And also the CARICOM did a capacity needs assessment, which we had already discussed the year before a little bit with the countries. And we are trying to help where we can with any support that parties require, be it technical or other capacity building. We also had a workshop in the Pacific just recently, and I can confirm that online workshops make you work around the clock because we adapted to the Pacific time zone. So we started at midnight our time and finished at 5 o'clock in the morning for 3 days in a row, which we're not going to do again. So we'll have to find another way to do more work with the countries in the Pacific. But it was a very good meeting, and we worked with both FAO and SPREP. And the idea was to see how we could better use national fisheries legislation to promote the implementation of CITES and have more synergies and collaboration between CITES authorities and fisheries authorities where they are not the same in the countries in the Pacific. And we're going to next year, well, I'll come back to that, but we're going to repeat that exercise in the Caribbean next year. So just to give you a little bit of a snapshot in terms of national legislation, we have a project where we monitor the implementation of the convention through national legislation. And I was in charge of that project until 2 weeks ago. And so quickly jotted down a few countries where we've seen progress in the past 2 years. As you can see, there is quite a lot of progress, and where it says one after the country, St. Kitts and Nevis and Solomon Islands, means that they now have legislation in place that meets the requirements, the minimum requirements of the CITES Convention. So at least in Solomon Islands, UNEP provided support with us, and SPREP has provided support to Samoa and Tonga in the Pacific. And we're working to see if Trinidad and Tobago need any support. We have also been supporting countries in Africa, Benin, all of them actually, mostly with technical advice, so legislative advice on their draft legislation. We review it and provide advice. So we've actually supported most of these countries as well. So that's a quick snapshot of the national legislation project activities in the past 2 years. And as So just wanted to mention some of the impact we have created with the meetings. We've had parties are up to date with annual reports in the Caribbean. They're increasingly reporting illegal trade, which was a bit of an issue. As I said, there's been development on the adoption of national legislation, and there will be further work on e-permitting in the Bahamas with the with CARICOM. And the e-permitting has been generating a lot more attraction and attention over the past 2 years because of the fact that we have to work from home, so paper permits can be more complicated to deal with, and also because touching papers can have a risk itself. And many countries basically think that we need to move towards e-permitting. We have e-certificates in the plant area, and we have corona passes, so why can't we have e-permits in terms of CITES? So that's what we're working with. And the Secretariat has literally just recruited a person that will be full-time working on e-permitting. And we're linking this up with other international organizations working on similar issues, WCO, UNECE, UNCFACT, UNCTAD, as I mentioned before. So that's a big area of work in the Secretariat. And in the Pacific, our hope is that there is a little bit better coherence and collaboration between CITES authorities and fisheries agencies. For instance, in a country like Papua New Guinea, who was there with both parts at the meeting. So coming to work plan for the next period, as I said, we'll have a workshop in the Caribbean on the CITES implementation and fisheries. It's going to be towards middle of next year in collaboration with the FAO and other partners. Again, we've been working more on electronic and automated permitting systems. We have a new program called the Compliance Assistance Program, and we're selecting parties that are persistently in non-compliance and give them more targeted hand-holding support where they really get sort of a needs assessment. What do you need? And we help to provide that, whether it's training in doing permits or enforcement training, whatever it is, we will be able to support that non-detriment finding, which is a very important aspect of the convention. We can support that as well. So we're selecting a few countries, both in Africa and the Pacific, to test this type of hand-holding, targeted support for capacity and compliance. We also have another project, which is specific assistance to West and Central African countries that is just about to start, where instead of doing workshops that we think they need, we'll ask them what kind of support would you like, and we'll be able to provide that. So we've just issued that call for requests for support, and we'll have a meeting next week to discuss this with parties in both French and English-speaking West and Central Africa. We're working on revamping, as it were, our virtual college, which is a number of courses that we have online that we will modernize and make up to date and attractive, both in terms of implementation, but also in terms of enforcement areas, and that will go online next year. Finally, we're into a busy year. It's a COP year for us. Fingers crossed, we'll have our COP in November in Panama. And we will have, hopefully, the ability to have some preparatory meetings. At least there was a call for doing that in the Pacific, and we'll see if we can work with colleagues to put in place such meetings to allow for a good preparation of the conference itself. I think that was it. I hope that was short enough. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sophie. It was very clear, and good luck for the COP next year. There will be it's a COP year.
Thank you.
I hope it will not be postponed as for potentially the CBD. Thanks so much. I propose we move to the next presentation, and again, we keep the comments or feedback either for the chat or for the final part of the discussion. I will, Laura, pass you the floor for your presentation. Please, if you can stick to the 10 minutes.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Aurélie. I didn't plan to have a PowerPoint presentation, but just give a very brief overview of the implementation of relevant activities under the project. So CMS, the Convention on the Conservation of Migratory Species of Wild Animals, is a global convention and which aims to protect and also to promote international cooperation for the conservation of species that migrate across national borders. And under the convention, a number of treaties, either regional or global, have been established to conserve either groups of species or single species. And we are very grateful to be part of this project, which directly supports the implementation of the convention and its instruments, across these regions. And the project addresses the main gaps with regards to CMS. I mean, one of the issues that we are facing is the lack of membership in certain regions. And I can just give you an idea. For instance, in Africa, we have still 8 countries which haven't joined the convention, in the Caribbean 12 and the Pacific region 11. So this project would really support us improving the situation. The project also supports the implementation of CMS, for instance, through enhancing the effectiveness of institutions and legal frameworks. Like CITES, we have launched not long time ago a national legislation program, which is a supportive and facilitative activity to assist countries in complying with CMS provisions, especially related to the taking of migratory species. And this activity is voluntary. So not all countries, all parties have engaged in this program. In Africa, so far 9 countries have joined the program. In the Caribbean 2, and in the Pacific, no country so far. So working with the hubs and organizing together, workshops and reaching out to them will certainly improve the situation. So the engagement of countries in the program, and also, for those who have engaged in the program, will support in assisting them improving their legal frameworks. So the project also supports the implementation of very specific either initiatives or areas of the work of the convention. For instance, we reach out to the African Union to join forces to look at impacts of aquatic and terrestrial wild meat. We have already done some work in this area, but of course we need to expand, and we look forward to the cooperation with them. In August, we organized together with the SPREP Secretariat the 4th meeting of the signatories of the Pacific Islands Citation Memorandum of Understanding of CMS. The meeting was very successful, and it took place back-to-back with the SPREP meetings on focusing on a number of species. And the meeting also approved the Regional Whale and Dolphin Action Plan for 2022 and 26, which was also approved by SPREP. So it was a very good collaboration, and we are very grateful for all the logistical support, but also the substantive support provided by SPREP. So there are a number of activities that we are planning to organize, and we will reach out to the regions as appropriate. So thank you again very much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Laura. It was very good and good illustration of cooperation taking place. I think you're really all showing that you have a lot of knowledge, expertise available, and that cooperation with the regional hubs can be really beneficial. Thank you for that. Now I would like to pass the floor to Neil. Niels Pratt, yes, you are here. So the presentation
yes,
on the CBD. Last but not least.
Right. Yeah, thank you very much indeed. I will also try to be brief, and like Laura, I shan't use a PowerPoint presentation, but I'm not sure I will be able to be as good as her in being so brief and succinct, but please, warn me if I'm taking too long. So first of all, perhaps just a quick introduction. I'm Neil Pratt, responsible at the Secretariat for Stakeholder Engagement and Cooperation